Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all beloved beings everywhere. So welcome to our Tuesday evening gathering to read and discuss the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that unique volume of invitation and instruction left to us very deliberately by Sri Ramakrishna and his servant, his instrument, Mahendranath Gupta M. We've come quite a ways along in the book. Haimo will tell us where we are, and then unless there's something that someone wants to bring up, which of course you're most welcome to do. That's what a class is for us, to discuss things, not just to read things and hear things, but to discuss things. So if there's something that you would like to offer from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that you have, please don't be shy. That's what we're here for. So anything at all from anyone before we go ahead? All right, dear Haimo, please let us know where we are in the book and let us, as they say, sally forth.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Good evening and namaste, everybody. We are on page 140 on PDF. That is, the topic would be the Master with the Brahmo devotees. Last week, we finished Path of Devotion, most elective for Kali Yuga. That is done. Now I'm going to start with the Master with the Brahmo devotees. Page 140 again.
In the book, it is 145.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Balaji.
Hare Krishna.
October 28th, 1882. It was Saturday. The semi-annual Brahmo festival, celebrated each autumn and spring, was being held in Beni Madhav Pal's beautiful garden house at Sindhi, about 3 miles north of Calcutta. The house stood in a secluded place, suited for contemplation. Trees laden with flowers, artificial lakes with grassy banks, and green arbors enhanced the beauty of the grounds. Just as the fleecy clouds were turning gold in the light of the setting sun, the Master arrived. Many devotees had attended the morning devotions, and in the afternoon, people from Calcutta and the neighboring villages joined them. Shivanath, the great Brahmo devotee, whom the Master loved dearly, was one of the large gathering of members of the Brahmo Samaj, who had been eagerly awaiting Sri Ramakrishna's arrival. When the carriage bringing the Master and a few devotees reached the garden house, the assembly stood up respectfully to receive him. There was a sudden silence, like that which comes when the curtain in a theater is about to be rung up. People who had been conversing with one another now fixed their attention on the master's serene face, eager not to lose one word that might fall from his lips. Next, master's joy on seeing Shivanath. At the sight of Shivanath, the master cried out joyously, "Ha, here is Shivanath. You see, you are a devotee of God. The very sight of you gladdens my heart." One hemp smoker feels very happy to meet another.
Now,
Very
let's take that seriously to heart. Read that again, dear.
sure.
The master feels that way when he sees us in our sincerity as well. We can feel this one hemp smoker metaphor. It's really sweet. Please read that again.
Sure. Master's joy on seeing Shivanath. At the sight of Shivanath, the master cried out joyously, "Ha, here is Shivanath. You see, you are a devotee of God. The very sight of you gladdens my heart."
Ah.
One hemp smoker feels very happy to meet another. Very often they embrace each other in an exuberance of joy. The devotees burst out laughing. Worldly people's indifference to spiritual life. Master. Many people visit the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. If I see some among the visitors indifferent to God, I say to them, "You had better sit over there." Or sometimes I say, "Go and see the beautiful buildings." Laughter. Sometimes I find that the devotees of God are accompanied by worthless people. Their companions are immersed in gross worldliness and don't enjoy spiritual talk at all. Since the devotees keep on for a long time talking with me about God, the others become restless. Finding it impossible to sit there any longer, they whisper to their devotee friends, "When shall we be going? How long will you stay here?" The devotees say, "Wait a bit. We shall go after a little while." Then the worldly people say in a disgusted tone, "Well, then you can talk. We shall wait for you in the boat." Laugh, all laugh. Next, the power of God's name. Worldly people will never listen to you if you ask them to renounce everything and devote themselves wholeheartedly to God. Therefore, Chaitanya and Nitai, after some deliberation, made an arrangement to attract the worldly. They would say to such persons, "Come, repeat the name of Hari, and you shall have a delicious soup of mugger fish and the embrace of a young woman." Many people, attracted by the fish and the woman, would chant the name of God. After tasting a little of the nectar of God's hallowed name, they would soon realize that the fish soup really meant the tears they shed for love of God, while the young woman signified the earth. The embrace of the woman meant rolling on the ground in the rapture of divine love. Nitai would employ any means to make people repeat Hari's name.
Mhm.
Chaitanya said, "The name of God has very great sanctity."
Just to pause just a moment. The two of the talks on Sunday morning in February will celebrate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthday, which is February 18th. And it's the reason for two is that it'll be on his morning prayer, which is called Chaitanya's prayer, of course. And the title of these talks is Chaitanya's Prayer, the Perfect Primer, Part 1 and Part 2. So we're not going to ignore what it is that Chaitanya left behind for us. So 2 Sundays right around February 18th. That's when we'll celebrate his birthday and discuss his prayer, which is profound indeed. It is the perfect primer on the practice of bhakti. Anything else from anyone while we're paused? Okay, go ahead, dear.
Nitya would employ any means to make people repeat Hari's name. Chaitanya said, the name of God has very great sanctity. It may not produce an immediate result, but one day it must bear fruit. It is like a seed that has been left on the cornice of a building. After many days, the house crumbles, and the seed falls on the earth, germinates, and at last bears fruit. 3 classes of devotees. That's the topic now. As worldly people are endowed with sattva, rajas, and tamas, so also is bhakti, characterized by the 3 gunas. Do you know what a worldly person endowed with sattva is like? Perhaps his house is in a dilapidated condition here and there. He doesn't care to repair it. The worship hall may be strewn with pigeon droppings and the courtyard covered with the moss, but he pays no attention to these things. The furniture of the house may be old. He doesn't think of polishing it and making it look neat. He doesn't care for dress at all. Anything is good enough for him. But the man himself is very gentle, quiet, kind, and humble. He doesn't injure anyone. I'll read this one more time. As worldly people are endowed with sattva, rajas, and tamas, so also is bhakti, characterized by the 3 gunas. Do you know what a worldly person endowed with sattva is like? Perhaps his house is in a dilapidated condition here and there. He doesn't care to repair it. The worship hall may be strewn with pigeon droppings and the courtyard covered with moss, but he pays no attention to these things. The furniture of the house may be old. He doesn't think of polishing it and making it look neat. He doesn't care for dress at all. Anything is good enough for him. But the man himself is very gentle, quiet, kind, and humble. He doesn't injure anyone. Again, among the worldly, there are people with the traits of rajas. Such a man has a watch and chain and 2 or 3 rings on his fingers. The furniture of his house is all spick and span. On the walls hang portraits of the Queen, the Prince of Wales, and other prominent people. The building is whitewashed and spotlessly clean. His wardrobe is filled with a large assortment of clothes. Even the servants have their livery and all that. Livery. Even the servants have their livery and all that. The traits of a worldly man endowed with tamas are sleep, lust, anger, egotism, and the like. Next, 3 kinds of bhakti. Similarly, bhakti, devotion, has its sattva. A devotee who possesses it meditates on God in an absolute secret, perhaps inside his mosquito net. Others think he's asleep. Since he's late in getting up, they think perhaps he has not slept well during the night. His love for the body goes only as far as appeasing his hunger, and that only by means of rice and simple grains. There's no elaborate arrangement about his meals, no luxury in clothes, and no display of furniture. Besides, such a devotee never flatters anybody for money. An aspirant possessed of Rajasic Bhakti puts a tilak on his forehead and a necklace of holy Rudraksha beads, interspersed with gold ones, around his neck. All laugh. At worship, he wears a silk cloth. A man endowed with tamasic bhakti has burning faith. Such a devotee literally extorts boons from God, even as a robber falls upon a man and plunders his money. Bind, beat, kill. That is his way, the way of the dacoits. Next, utilizing tamas for spiritual welfare.
Hold on just one moment.
Sure, Brother Shankara, any comments?
Notice that each of these people is categorized and discussed, but without judgment, without any condemnation. Simply, this is how they are. This is so that you may recognize them. Here's what I see. And of course, the Master's vision is very penetrating. Here's what I see when I see these people of these characteristics and of these ways of being. But absolutely no condemnation or judgment. Just, this is how they are. And so you can deal with them accordingly. It's really quite a little exercise in observation and commentary. Anything else at all from anyone while we're paused? Okay, dear, please read on.
Utilizing tamas for spiritual welfare. Saying this, the Master began to sing in a voice sweet with rapturous love, his eyes turned upward. Why should I go to Ganga or Gaya? To Kashi, Kanchi, or Pravas? So long as I can breathe my last with Kali's name upon my lips. What need of rituals as a man? What need of devotions anymore? If he repeats the mother's name at the 3 holy hours. Rituals may pursue him close, but never can they overtake him. Charity, vows, and giving of gifts do not appeal to Madan's mind. The blissful mother's lotus feet are his whole prayer and sacrifice. Who could ever have conceived the power her name possesses? Shiva himself, the God of gods, sings her praise with his 5 mouths. The Master was beside himself with love for the Divine Mother. He sang with fiery enthusiasm. If only I can pass away repeating Durga's name, how canst thou then, O Blessed One, withhold from me deliverance, wretched though I may be? Then he said, one must take the firm attitude. What? I have chanted the mother's name. How can I be a sinner anymore? I am her child, heir to her powers and glories.
Now, let's be sure and take this seriously, what the Master just said. I have chanted the name of the Lord. How can I be a sinner anymore? So please go ahead and read that again here.
Sure, Brother Shankara.
And take it deeply into ourselves.
Mm-hmm. If only I can pass away repeating Durga's name, how canst thou then, O Blessed One, withhold from me deliverance, wretched though I may be? Then he said, one must take the firm attitude. What? I have chanted the mother's name. How can I be a sinner anymore? I am her child, heir to her powers and glories. If you can give a spiritual turn to your tamas, you can realize God with its help. Force your demands on God. He is by no means a stranger to you. He is indeed your very own. That's the end of that particular topic, utilizing tamas for spiritual welfare.
Yeah, and please remember what the Holy Mother said. Have no fear of the world, my child. If you don't criticize others. If you must criticize yourself. And know that no one is a stranger. The whole world is your own. So this is the master is echoing this, or she echoed him actually. But this is what a way for us to see the world. The entire world is our own. Not in a physical sense that we could possess all the wealth of the world. We could if that became our desire. But we could become wealthy. And then so that's why the master in making that comment said about the fellow speaking, even if I am rich. So we think of ourselves as, oftentimes we think of ourselves as apart from the world. But here the master is saying no. And the mother, as I say, repeated him. The whole world is your own. No one and no thing in this world is a stranger to you. Anything else from anyone while we're paused? All right, dear, let's go on.
Next small topic is illustration of physicians. Again, you see, the quality of tamas can be used for the welfare of others. There are three classes of physicians: superior, mediocre, and inferior. The physician who feels the patient's pulse and just says to him, "Take the medicine regularly," belongs to the inferior class. He doesn't care to inquire whether or not the patient has actually taken the medicine. The mediocre physician is he who, in various ways, persuades the patient to take the medicine and says to him sweetly, "My good man, how will you be cured unless you use this medicine? Unless you use the medicine, take this medicine. I have made it for you myself." But he who, finding the patient stubbornly refusing to take the medicine, forces it down his throat, going so far as to put his knee on the patient's chest, is the best physician. This is the manifestation of the tamas of the physician. It doesn't injure the patient. On the contrary, it does him good.
Now, this is the master's observation. He's been making observations and categorizations. This is his observation and categorization of the three kinds of teachers. There's one kind of teacher who will just say, "Oh, this is what's so," and not even bother about asking whether you heard. The second, of course, will make some attempt to assure that you've heard and understood. The third, as the master said, the superior physician will make certain that you have assimilated what has been taught, going so far even as to force it down your throat and putting a knee on your chest. Now, the master behaved this way only with very few. Only very few could tolerate that superior position. They would prefer one of the earlier. You can see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna how he did this. Particularly, one of those that he did this with was Narendra, who became Swami Vivekananda. He really put a knee on his chest and made him swallow the medicine, particularly the medicine of Advaita. He requested Vivekananda to read the Ashtavakra Samhita to him. And when it was just anathema to Narendra. So this is what is meant by this metaphor of the physicians. Any comments or questions or concerns? Okay.
I think, Hari Om,
Yes.
I think he is really emphasizing about the tamasic aspects of our gunas. He's not putting down the tamasic aspect. He's
No.
actually saying with the tamasic aspect also, we see in the previous, tamasic bhakti has a burning faith. And also in this, in the physician's thing, can be used for the welfare of others. So he is not putting down the tamasic bhakti or
No.
tamasic aspect of our gunas.
And for very good reason, Balakrishna. Here at the end of the Kali Yuga, there is such an abundance of tamas. There is such an abundance of tamas. It shows up in virtually everything. If we look around us and out into the world, how is the world behaving? Oh, it's behaving in such a tamasic way. And so people are suffering so terribly. But of course, that doesn't limit itself to the world. It is also an aspect, as the Master has been pointing out, of our spiritual experience in this time. And this is why he's so fiercely recommends tamasic bhakti as the way to go forward. Bhakti is the way to go forward in this particular time of the world. Thank you, Bala.
Well, in the Bible it says, knock and you shall receive. And also, Krishna tells us, that it's your birthright. So make the mother, pony up.
Yes.
Ask her.
Yes, don't be afraid to ask. By all means, don't be afraid to ask. Who else will you ask? And there's no reason, as you said, it's your birthright, your ability to ask, your ability to talk to the Divine Mother, who is, as she has pointed out herself, in the person of Sri Sharada Devi, I am your real mother, your true mother. When you call on me by name, I cannot hold myself back. So this is just as you say, Bhagavan does. Just call on her. And
Actually, one of the devotee, went to see the mother, and the mother was telling, "I am your mother." Then the devotee says, "No, I have my mother. How can you say you are my mother?" And then actually he was able to see his own mother on this mother. Yes. I forgot the name of the devotee.
It's Girish Ghosh. It's Girish Ghosh.
Oh,
He
Girish
went to
Ghosh.
see her in Jairambati
I
and
see.
had an astounding experience. Yes, it's Girish Ghosh.
Also, he's an example of, repeating God's name, and it purified him basically.
Yes.
Because I was sitting there thinking, well, is it because the person is already someone who had not sinned? And then I thought about Girish Ghosh, and then, he was still actively in his worldly lifestyle when he started, and it basically converted him.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So I was like, well, no, it's, I was trying to think which came first, the chicken or the egg, but obviously the chanting of the name did bring him out of his worldly life.
Oh, yes. But by the time of this incident in Jairambati, he was already saintly. It's really, you can look this up in the book about Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, her divine play, as written by Swami Nikhilananda. It is a remarkable incident of Girish Ghosh coming to Jairambati and seeing. He said, "Oh," because he'd never seen her without her veil. She always wore her veil in Calcutta. And so there he saw her in Jairambati without her veil. And he said, "Oh, it was you. It was you when I was 24 years old who came and sat on my bed and passed your hand over my forehead and cured me of that deadly disease." My mother didn't say anything. She just smiled.
Well, like it says, you didn't choose me, I chose you.
Exactly. Precisely. Right. And that is emphatically true of Girish Ghosh. The master chose him. And of course, the mother maintained that relationship. It became such a sweet relationship between the two of them because he really became convinced that she was his real mother, his true mother. And it's so important for us to remember that she said, these are her very words, "When I am called on by name, Sri Sharda Devi, when I am called on by name, I cannot hold myself back. So never fear. Ask. Ask and ye shall receive. Knock and it shall be opened unto you." These are the promises of these great ones as they come. Anything else from anyone? Thank you for the conversation. Okay, let's go on.
Next, 3 types of gurus. Like the physicians, there are 3 types of religious teachers. The inferior teacher only gives instruction to the disciples, but makes no inquiries about their progress. The mediocre teacher, for the good of the student, makes repeated efforts to bring the instruction home to him, begs him to assimilate it, and shows him love in many other ways. But there is a type of teacher who goes to the length of using force when he finds the student persistently unyielding. I call him the best teacher. No finality about God's nature. A Brahmo devotee asks, "Sir, does God has forms or has he none?" Master, No one can say with finality that God is only this and nothing else. He is formless, and again he has forms. For the bhakta, he assumes forms, but he is formless for the jnani. That is, for him who looks on the world as a mere dream. The bhakta feels that he is one entity and the world another. Therefore, God reveals himself to him as a person. But the jnani, the Vedantist, for instance, always reasons, applying the process of not this, not that, not this. Through this discrimination, he realizes by his inner perception that the ego and the universe are both illusory, like a dream. Then the jnani realizes Brahman in his consciousness. He cannot describe what Brahman is. Do you know what I mean? Think of Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, as a shoreless ocean. Through the cooling influence, as it were, of the bhakta's love, the water has frozen at places into blocks of ice. In other words, God now and then assumes various forms for his lovers and reveals himself to them as a person. But with the rising of the sun of knowledge, the blocks of ice melt. Then one doesn't feel anymore that God is a person, nor does one see God's forms. What he is cannot be described. Who will describe him? He who would do so disappears. He cannot find his I anymore. Next, illusoriness.
Hang on for just a minute.
Any comments, Brother Shankar?
Is all that clear? The master was talking about the forms of God, why the forms of God exist. And he obviously is talking about himself. And he said the forms of God exist because we want them to exist. This cooling effect of love and devotion takes the infinite ocean of consciousness and freezes it, so to speak, into these forms. But they're temporary, like everything else that is not eternal, changeless, and infinite. They're temporary. And so, with the dawn of knowledge, with the dawn of the sun of knowledge, this warmth of the knowledge shines on the forms and they melt away, leaving what? It cannot be described because there's no describer there. There's no mind. The mind is something of the time bound, of the finite, the moment to moment. So but when we are in that state where we want these forms of God, there's every reason for us to reach out and accept the hand of their invitation. They have created themselves for us. So let us accept their invitation to a relationship and not think ourselves unworthy of it, which is one of the problems that we have, is that we think ourselves unworthy of that which our desire has created. It's such a shame. Yet all the saints talk of it. about there being a period in their lives in which they refused to be in intimate relationship with their divine lover because they felt unworthy. Turn to me in utter devotion, I see no sinner. So says Sri Krishna. Holiness itself shall transform you. Anything else from anyone while we're paused?
Well, the last sentence is very important, I think, what it says is, God is a person or not. What he is cannot be described. Who will describe him? He who would do so disappears. There is no more ego I, the small I. So there is nothing to describe.
Precisely.
I heard Sarvadevananda say this, and I've heard it a million times, but for some reason when he said it, it hit me different. But he was talking about, like, you got the 10 little buckets and the sun is reflecting the little suns in the buckets. And he's like, you break one and now, they say, oh, there's 9, all the way down to where there's one bucket left. And then the bucket is, he asks, well, how many is there? And he's like, all is one. But then he pointed out that you can't say God is one unless there's 2.
Right.
And then when you break that last bucket, there's no one left to say.
There's no thing. That's right. There's no thing left. And as when you're in that no thingness, who is there left to describe anything? And what is there to describe? There is no thing to describe. It's a state that can only be experienced. It cannot really be discussed.
Brother Shankara, there
Yes,
is a nice chat message from Alex to everybody. He said, God is the name of the blanket we throw over the mystery to give it shape. That's what he said. He's an outgroup. He just wrote it down.
please read it again.
God is the name of the blanket we throw over the mystery to give it shape. I thought it's worth sharing.
Yes, it's a very poetic
Nice.
way to say it.
It's a good metaphor.
That's a very nice piece of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying. It's like, sometimes I perceive the avatars and stuff as a living, being person that's right there present. And sometimes you can tell that it's an image that is really kind of a placeholder in your mind for something you really can't understand.
Mm-hmm. It's a reflection in our awareness of consciousness, capital C. And that reflection, if we watch it carefully, we'll see that it often will just plain wink at us. Just wink, saying, yes, here I am, but also at the same time, I am not. I am a reflection, not the real thing. The real thing cannot be grasped or described. And of course, this is why Alex said what he said. We throw a blanket over it to try to give it some shape so we can have some grasp. Very nicely put.
Well, I don't know if you would agree to this, but it's kind of like, what we think and all is in our mind, and it's solely created in our mind, but yet they do exist in the cosmic consciousness in reality. Like there is a basis for their existence. They do exist in that level. But it's at the same time, it's for us, it's still mind.
What is there to quarrel about with what you said? No, that is certainly one way to look at it. if they didn't exist in the cosmic mind, where would they come from at all? You're quite right. And
Well,
of course, all of the great teachers talk about the cosmic mind in one way or another, whether it's Jesus talking about God the Father, or Vashishta talking about Rama. It doesn't matter what form or formless aspect. There is something there. Otherwise, it could not arise for us. So I agree, not disagree.
Well, it's weird because, because I listen to things that Sarvadeva says a lot, but, he was talking about dreams and that we create the people in our dreams. They can only come from mind. There's no other place that they could be. And in whatever reality we're in, be it a dream, is our reality at that time. But yet, everyone in the dream only came from one source, and that'd be your mind. And so when we're in this so-called reality, I'm trying to still process, well, how real are the other people? And do they, how real is their reality? Or are they just my mind? And it's really kind of difficult to work it all out.
Well, it's that desire to work it all out that is the difficulty. It cannot be all worked out. It simply can't. So that is a form of distraction, that desire to work it all out and get it all straight and organized and comprehensible. Hopeless condition.
Well, he kind of also said that the antidote to that is just to focus on love.
Yes, and the moment. Love and the moment. And things are much more gratifying and fulfilling if that's the way we go about it. You're absolutely right. Anything else from anyone?
Yes, brother. This is Jeff.
Yes, Jeff.
I just want to share the fact that it was this passage, or a passage like it, that was the first major seed that was planted in me, that led me ultimately to this path. I say, or a passage like it, because I was reading the abridged version of the gospel back in 2006 or so. Prior to that, I had been impressed by something that Joseph Campbell had said, that the religions and spiritual practices of the world are like software. They all work. You just pick the one that works best for you. And that made sense to me from like the quasi-scientific viewpoint, but it didn't really explain how it all works. And then when I read this passage in the abridged gospel, that God can come to you in whatever form you want God to come to you, that was the big aha for me. That was the big takeaway that put Ramakrishna on the map for me. So
How splendid.
Just wanted to share that.
I'm so glad you shared that. And of course, that's why the master left these messages behind, to do exactly what you just said, to touch your heart, to open your mind, and have, as you said, an aha moment. Beautiful. Splendid. Anything else from anyone? Thank you. All right, dear, please read on.
Illusoriness of I, that is the topic, small topic. If one analyzes oneself, one doesn't find any such thing as I. Take an onion, for instance. First of all, you peel off the red outer skin. Then you find thick white skins. Peel these off one after the other and you won't find anything inside. In that state, a man no longer finds the existence of his ego. And who is there left to seek it? Who can describe how he feels in that state in his own pure consciousness about the real nature of Brahman? Once a salt doll went to measure the depth of the ocean. No sooner was it in the water than it melted. Now, who was to tell the depth? Sign of perfect knowledge is the next small topic. There is a sign of perfect knowledge. Man becomes silent when it is attained. Then the I, which may be likened to the salt doll, melts in the ocean of existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, and becomes one with it. Not the slightest trace of distinction is left. As long as his self-analysis is not complete, man argues with much ado. But he becomes silent when he completes it. When the empty pitcher has been filled with water, when the water inside the pitcher becomes one with the water of the lake outside, no more sound is heard. Sound comes from the pitcher as long as the pitcher is not filled with water. People used to say in olden days that no boat returns after having once entered the black waters of the ocean. All trouble and botheration come to an end when the I dies. You may indulge in thousands of reasoning, but still the I doesn't disappear. For people like you and me, it's good to have the feeling, I am a lover of God. Any comments, Brother Shankara?
Well, it's just as we were saying earlier.
Mhm.
If we focus on love in the moment, I am a lover of God in this moment. Very little else can trouble the mind. I mean, when the things that want to trouble the mind arise, you can simply set them to the side. You can simply return your attention to the love in the moment. Now it's difficult to attain that state where you can do that. But that's exactly what's being pointed to here.
Mhm.
So read those last few lines again.
Lord, Brother Shankara. All trouble and botheration come to an end when the I dies. You may indulge in thousands of reasoning, but still the I doesn't disappear. For people like you and me, it is good to have the feeling, I am a lover of God.
Exactly. And if that's the only ego that you identify with, then you are invulnerable.
I have a comment to make, Brother Shankara, here, since we are talking about ego and I think I was reading somewhere, and it is true, which is as we meditate, our meditation progresses and manifests from egoness to divineness, then the I disappears. Then all these troubles and botherations
Yes, exactly.
come to an end, and the I dies slowly. That is a sign of meditation manifesting. I noticed. I read that too, and then few of the Swamis also mentioned that.
Oh yes, they'll tell you again and again.
Yes.
That's where Bhagavan Das was talking about what Swami Sarvadevananda says.
Also, another example in a little different mode is pay attention to how much trouble me and mine causes in your mind.
Oh, yes.
Right.
I, me, mine. I, me, mine is the source of virtually all the unpleasantness. Very well said. Yes, I, me, mine. Anything else from anyone? We have a few minutes left, I think.
We have about 5 minutes left. We can catch up a few more.
Please go ahead.
Next, personal God for devotees. The Saguna Brahman is meant for the bhaktas. In other words, a bhakta believes that God has attributes and reveals himself to men as a person, assuming forms.
Now read that again.
Sure.
This is such a wonderful definition of Saguna Atman or Saguna Brahman.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
please read that again.
Sure. Personal God for devotees. The Satguna Brahman is meant for the bhaktas. In other words, a bhakta believes that God has attributes and reveals himself to men as a person, assuming forms. It is he who listens to our prayers. The prayers that you utter are directed to him alone. You are bhaktas, not jnanis or Vedantis. It doesn't matter whether you accept God with form or not. It's enough to feel that God is a person who listens to our prayers, who creates, preserves, and destroys the universe, and who is endowed with the infinite power. It is easier to attain God by following the path of devotion. Brahmo devotee asks, Sir, is it possible for one to see God? If so, why can't we see him? Master, yes, he can surely be seen. One can see his forms and his formless aspect as well. How can I explain that to you? Intense longing enables one to see God. Brahmo devotee asks, what are the means by which one can see God? Master, can you weep for him with intense longing of heart? Men shed a jug full of tears for the sake of their children, for their wives, or for money. But who weeps for God? So long as the child remains engrossed with its toys, the mother looks after her cooking and other household duties. But when the child no longer relishes the toys, it throws them aside and yells for its mother. Then the mother takes the rice pot down from the earth, runs in haste, and takes the child in her arms. Why so much controversy about God? Brahmo devotee asks, Sir, why are there so many different opinions about the nature of God? Some say that God has form, while others say that he is formless. Again, those who speak of God with form tell us about his different forms. Why all this controversy? Master answers, a devotee thinks of God as he sees him. In reality, there is no confusion about God. God explains all this to the devotee if the devotee only realizes him somehow. You haven't set your foot in that direction. How can you expect to know all about God? Now, parable of the...
Let's leave it.
Any comment? Sure.
Let's leave it right there.
Okay, it's time actually. Your time 8:30.
No.
So we should close
Let's
right.
leave it right there.
Okay, I will.
Pick it up there next week.
Yes, definitely.
Any final thoughts or concerns or questions from anyone? All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may the Father, God, Father, Mother, God, that is introduced to us in the prayer that opens these sessions, may we be secure in the knowledge that Father, Mother, God holds us in a loving and protective embrace. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, make it so. May we all be well and in bright spirits. And until tomorrow evening, when we have the class on the book Realizing God. Any final thought, concern, or question from anyone? All right. We shall disappear.